So this topic, it's your fault if it doesn't work, is equally the saddest and also the most common thing that I hear. Okay, so basically when sleep plans don't work, the very, very first person that the finger is pointed at is the mother, right? But I want to start off by saying that it is never your fault. It is not because of something that you're doing wrong. It is not because you refuse to do something like cry it out or bed share. Okay. It is not because you breastfeed to sleep. It is not because you pat, rock, bounce. It's not because they sleep in the pram. It's not because they only nap in the car. It is not because you're out and about. It is certainly not because of you. Okay. Now, why is your child having an unnatural sleep pattern problem? Is simply because they're struggling with something. And that is what leads to the difficulty. All right. So basically the other thing that I want to say here is that it's actually not really the people that are giving you the advice's fault per se. I mean, realistically, when we know that doctors have 17 minutes training on pediatric sleep, 17 minutes on average. This is in a research paper. This was found, okay? So essentially when the people that we are asking for help do not have the understanding to give you much more than the basics, then where are you going to stand, right? So basically then the other thing is that pretty much the whole model for sleep advice has not changed much since about 1960. I'm serious, right? So 1950 was when the idea of sleep training and putting your baby down and walking away was actually first talked about. And then it was pretty thick and fast by 1960. Very little changes have happened since then until recently, where we're starting to work things out in a different manner. Here we're starting to talk about responding, attachment, risk response, sleep being physical, parent mental health, long-term outcomes. So there's lots and lots of things that we're actually considering these days that have not been considered very much in the past. And it's taken us a very, very long time to get here. And I know exactly why. Now, I don't know how much you know about me and my story, but I'm very open about it because my firstborn, who's going to be 15 in a couple of weeks' time, he actually didn't sleep through the night until he was 6.5 years old. Now, I tried everything in the standard model for him, plus also spent about $10,000 on medical professionals, on pediatricians, on a sleep doctor, on a private sleep school, on a dermatologist, an immunologist, an ENT, a dietitian, like you name it. I did it with him and I got nowhere because the thing is, nobody learns about sleep. No doctors learn about sleep. No nurses or midwives learn about sleep. In fact, the actual standard professional training that one profession gets about sleep, which is the occupational therapist, they get the most out of everyone, and that's about the sensory aspect, not the physical, right? Then we have the psychologist who gets to learn about the psychological aspect, once again, not the physical, right? So when the people that we're asking for help about sleep don't actually know this stuff, then what have we got, right? That's when we get this finger pointing culture, right? This is when we start to point the finger at the mum. right? And that then is realistically what I call gaslighting. And do you know what? It's really not good enough for parents to have the finger pointed at them when their child doesn't sleep. How your child sleeps is absolutely 0% to do with how good you are as a mother. Absolutely nothing to do with how good you are as a mother, right? Every day I speak to people who realistically are doing so many right things by their child and they don't even realize it, right? Like, I actually just booked in a client before and she is feeding her 12-month-old to sleep many times in the night. And ultimately, she doesn't want to be feeding her to sleep that many times in the night, but she also doesn't want to stop responding to her. And I would totally agree with that, right? There is absolutely no way I could ever recommend stopping what she's doing when we don't even understand why she's needing to do it so much, right? So when we actually have this system where we're pointing the finger at the mum and the mum is the person who is doing right by the child, this is like so important. Nobody knows your child like you. Not me, ever. I would never, ever say that I know your child better than you. I don't even ever ask my clients to fill forms out. Why? Because you know everything about your child. And I trust you. The thing is, the rest of the system does not trust you, right? The rest of the system is telling you that you are the problem, right? But the thing is, when we start actually getting down to the crux of it, you're not the problem. You're doing everything right by your child and the system is the problem. Okay, so when we start actually looking at things with the research that we understand, so we add the evidence in and we start to actually see sleep as not only psychological but also physical. It's not a behavior, it's something that happens to your child, right? So if there's something physical in the way, then we obviously can identify, manage and resolve that. And when I say physical, I would have to say that 9 times out of 10, the problem is a really minor but disruptive wellness issue, right? But the thing is, that minor disruptive wellness issue is incredibly turbulent in your life. It's causing a big, widespread flow-on effect. And it really affects the mental health of you, your child, and every single other person in your life. So ultimately, we need that foundation. We need the foundation of sleep to support your child's growth, development, learning, and relationships without starting off by saying the mum is at fault, right? One concept that ultimately demonstrates this mum being at fault is the idea of a sleep association, okay? So a sleep association essentially means that the child is relying on something to go to sleep, right? Now, the reason why I know that what we're telling parents about sleep associations is wrong is going back to the amygdala. Remember how we talked about the amygdala, I think, in the first video? So basically, when we are thinking about the fact that the amygdala is what flags on the risk. So the amygdala has found the sleep problem. It's flagged it as a risk. Your child has responded to that by either resisting sleep or a forced wake up. And then when we have this, then the next thing that happens after this is you respond to your child because they're having a problem. Now, what we tell parents is that they are the first person in this chain of events. But as you can see, you're totally not. You're like right down the line. Okay, so essentially, if you were feeding to sleep and the sleep pattern was erratic and you were feeding a lot and that was the sleep association because your child wouldn't fall asleep unless you did that, it's not because you fed. You're feeding because your child is having a problem, right? It's a complete reverse to what we're actually telling parents. So once again, that mechanism is actually finger pointing at the mum. And it's actually not you. Once again, you are doing right by the child because the child is struggling with something that we need to find. So if you are having this situation where your child has what is seeming to be a quite deeply ingrained sleep association, we need to know why. It can't just be, okay, well, you're feeding a lot, so let's stop doing that. That is a one-way ticket to a traumatic experience, okay? So please don't do that. Please have a conversation with me about it first and we can work it out. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, lovely. Bye.